So it is official today that we are going 5+7. This is what I think everybody needed to hope for in terms of what they're going to do. So everything you've been hearing about is now going to happen starting at the top. The top 4 conference champions. So you have to win your conference to get the bye. Let's make that clear. Top 4 conference champions get a bye. Could be a group of 5. That year that Cincinnati jumped up, that could happen. Top 4 get the bye. Then the 5 through 12 games are going to happen at home sites. Awesome stuff. 5 through 8 get to host a game against 9 through 12. That's all going to happen. Then when you add up the quarterfinals and the semifinals, that's the 6 New Year's 6 bowl games. That's where those games are going to be played. And then you shop around the championship game like we have. So in the end here, Catch, the things that are affected, you're not going to have to have 2 group of 5s in. I think that's important. And then the other thing to remember is for those two Pac-12 teams that are left, they have now agreed that the best way for them to get in is as an at-large. Washington State and Oregon State cannot get in as a Pac-12 champion. That doesn't exist this year. It can't happen. So they know that only getting the at-large would help them out. So it's going to happen. There are no limits on how many conference teams could get in. We all knew that was going to be the case, but it is official now. There could be 8, 10. Heck, you can't have all of them, but you could have, what's the maximum number? I guess 9 out of 12? Could you have 9?
No,
you could have 8.
Yes.
That's a number 8 because 3 other conferences would have to have champions get in, and then you may have a group. Maybe it's 7, but you know what we're saying. So it's done. It's official. We're getting the 5+7 starting this year. And then we got 2 more years of a couple of situations. And then down the road, they're going to mess with bowl affiliations and stuff like that. But the basic thing is today it's official 5+7.
Remember a year ago? Remember like 3 months ago when being 5 was a disaster? Poor Georgia came in at 5, lost their conference championship game, got left out. 5 was the worst thing that could happen. Florida State would raise their hand and say 6 wasn't awesome either. But Georgia was closest. They were 5. 5 seems like a hell of a place to be now. Let me outline this for you, okay?
All right.
5 means you're hosting a first-round playoff game, and there's a good chance that 12 is going to be one of these non-SEC Big Ten teams. That might be Liberty or somebody like that's where 12 could come in.
Right.
Because 5 get in, but the first 4 are your highest ranking conference champions. That 5th conference champion could very well be 12th a lot of years.
Yep.
Could be. You don't know, right? Yeah. But I think in a lot of years, 5 gets you a home playoff game against possibly a G5 team, right?
Yes.
And then you win that game, and your second round game is against the 4th best conference champion. Again, might not be one of the highest 4 teams in the playoffs or on the list. It's the highest of the conference champion teams. Could be ranked 8th or 9th in the standings, but because they won the conference championship, they get the 4 seed. But you're probably playing ACC Big 12. So your second round matchup in the quarterfinals, you're avoiding big dog SEC, big dog Big Ten. So in that respect, in a way, both 5 and 6 at least have that going for them, that in a second round matchup, every year, they're going to avoid the SEC and the Big Ten in the second round. So if you're 5, you're potentially getting kind of the weakest of the 12 on paper. And then your next matchup is against the weakest of the conference champions from either the ACC or the Big 12, you would think.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's a good point. Another issue that I've not heard discussed, Catch, is are they going to set up a true bracket, or are they going to have a little NFL vibe where if the 12 upsets the 5, the 12 will face the 1 seed?
I bet they go with a bracket.
I assume that as well. So in your scenario, that 5-12 winner will always play number 4.
Yes.
That's my assumption as well. But to be fair, we don't know it absolutely for sure. But it's a great point. Like 5 through 8 are kind of an interesting group of teams. As one of our, where did it go? As one of our chatters was listening to me explain it, 5 through 8 will host at their field. Yes. Cotton. That is happening. You could have a game, and that's why. And I've been keeping up with that for the last few years and reminding everybody of what sites could be hosting. It's incredible stuff. We've had all kinds of examples the last couple of years where Austin, Oxford, Knoxville, Happy Valley in December, God help us all, could be hosting playoff games. So Catch It will have that NFL feel of what are your advantages of bringing somebody to your house? How's your crowd? What's your weather look like that time of year? And how could that affect the playoff? It's going to be incredible.
I mean, the thing is, the 1 seed plays 8-9 on paper, right? I mean, if they go to a bracket, yes, they'll play the winner of that 8-9 game in the semifinals or in the quarterfinals, right?
In theory, yes.
In theory, yes. It's possible that could be, well, easily another SEC team. So let's say Georgia's the 1 seed, just for giggles, okay? Let's say 8-9 is Oregon versus Alabama.
Could be.
It's not out of the realm of possibility this year. It's possible that you're, as the number 1 team, your first playoff game, although at home, could be against, pick any of the SEC teams that you want that wouldn't be Georgia. Any of them could fall into somewhere on that list. But you could be playing Alabama at home. Would you rather be Georgia and playing Alabama at home? Or let's say you're Texas in the 5 seed and you beat Liberty in the opener, and now you're on the road at TCU. Or on the road in Lubbock, or on the road in maybe Utah. That sounds actually like a little scarier of a game than some of these other games that they've played. But it will be interesting to see how the 5-6 seeds are able to weaponize potentially being able to play those 3rd and 4th teams and avoiding an SEC team or maybe a Big 12 or a Big 10 team all the way until the semifinals. Whereas the 1 seed has to play somebody 8-9, and you can almost set your watch. There's going to be at least 1 SEC team that's 8 or 9. At least 1.
Yep.
And it could be 2. It could be LSU, Alabama, first round, 8 versus 9, and then the winner of that game goes to Georgia. I think, like I said, there's something to be said for having a bye, but having a home playoff game and then avoiding potentially the SEC or the Big Ten again until the semifinals isn't the worst lot in life. So I can't wait until we see this thing unfold, Chad, in real time in year 1, so we can start to, pick apart. They didn't get a bye, but it worked out for them in this way.
Yeah. You want to see it? You want to peek at last year's rankings, final rankings?
Well, sure.
Just to kind of remind ourselves what it would have been last year?
Yes.
All right. Let's take a look here. We'll jump in here and direct. So
the problem is Alabama. I guess that would have worked. Those would have been the 4 highest ranked conference teams.
That would be, yeah, that's true. That's a good thing to look at first. So yes, they would be the highest ranked conference teams because you had Florida State as your ACC champ. Florida State, let's go to 12. Florida State gets to host OU.
12 would have been Liberty, correct?
Yeah, let's just cruise down here and find them. But yeah, there's Liberty at 23. So let's say they go to 12 and OU's out, just to make it simple.
So Florida State would have played Liberty in the first round at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of the weird situation of the SEC champion being fourth, it's so weird to look at.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Bama and then they would have gone, and then they would play Bama. Your 8-9 idea is Oregon, Missouri. I knew there was an SEC team there last year. 8-9 would involve Missouri, and then you'd have Miss.
It doesn't work in this. It wouldn't have worked this past year because Alabama would have been the 4. But I do think moving forward that the Big 12 and the ACC are consistently going to come into those 3 and 4 spots. Now, maybe because those conferences are so tough, maybe there's a year where the ACC is undefeated and you've got an Alabama who's 12 and I don't know. I suppose there's a lot of ways. It'll be year by year, but I think instinctively, my first impression is that the SEC and the Big Ten more times than not are going to be 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And obviously, if you look right here, this can never happen in this playoff coming up. Michigan and Washington cannot be 1 and 2. That doesn't exist. That can't exist anymore because they're in the same conference now. So it'd be one of those two. Texas, if you want to, Texas because they win the Big 12. Bama wins the SEC.
So Florida State would have been 4.
Right. Florida State would have been up into a 4 seed, and Michigan or Washington would get kicked down. So just as a way of kind of taking a look at
I'm ready for college football to begin, Chad.
Oh, you kidding me? Good grief. I'm so excited. Like the fact that, the fact that I may get that I may get to live to see this, that my father is going to hopefully live to see this. Like, it's just so cool, man. College football stepping up and actually being a big boy entity in sports for once is fantastic. And you know what? Somebody just brought up a great point. Bama, Texas can't happen. Good point. They could never be now moving forward. It will never be Texas and Bama in the top 4 together.
Correct.
So you do have that. Kenny, great point. It is absolutely yes.
And I watched the Texas basketball game last night, Chad, through the prism of, boy, they better win this game or their ass is really on the bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Had they lost that game against Kansas State last night. But I'm at that part, and look, the conference tournaments in college basketball don't start. At least I don't think the Big 12 starts until the 12th of March.
It's that week.
I think I heard the guys on the broadcast say that about 15 times because this year the tournament would start on the 19th if we don't include that Tuesday, Wednesday play-in games. So the tournament proper starts on Thursday, the 19th. So it's a later starting tournament than usual. And yet today's February 20th. So we're almost exactly a month away in terms of days from the start of the college basketball postseason. I'm already watching games through the prism of, is this team? I will watch what the Aggies do this week, knowing they're on the bubble. I will watch all of these teams. We do it every year in college basketball. Suddenly, every game that any of those teams play, we know, if they win, that adds to their resume. If they lose, it might play their way out. Can't wait until October.
No.
September, people will be talking about it, but it won't take over. It'll still be the infancy of the season. Everybody will say it's too soon. By the time we get to Texas and Oklahoma in October, the implications, we will start talking playoffs. We will be 6 weeks away, and every team in the top 25 will think, I've got a chance. I just got to win out. I just got to win my conference. I got to make sure I don't lose more than 2 games. Like, for everybody, it will be a little different. When we watch the early games in the season, we'll say it with Texas and Michigan. Okay, well, the loser of that game, that's one of their mulligans. And you only get definitively, if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC, you get 2 mulligans.
Right.
You can go 10-2.
Mm-hmm. Used to be just 1. Now you get 2.
Now you get 2. And you know what? It will make the first loss not feel like life and death the way it has historically in college football, where even Alabama a year ago, when they lost to Texas, they probably thought that, well, we can still win the SEC. Everything's still in front of us. But even them at that point were thinking playoffs, we might be screwed.
Yeah. And that's
now moving forward, you've got some wiggle room.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, because we watched last year. I'll keep bringing up Ole Miss and Missouri. They were dangerous at the end of the year, and we lost that in college football, Catch, our whole lives. It didn't matter. The only way it matters is when you and I said, you know what team that's in a bowl game that nobody wants to play? Blah. And then that team would look pretty good and gives them momentum for the next year. But other than that, who cares? Now you're going to have a team that is dangerous in that slot. By the way, let me clarify something real quick off the chat in case everybody's confused. Chris says Pac-2 champ getting a bye. No, Chris, that is not what's happening. Washington State and Oregon State have been clearly told they don't qualify. They don't have enough teams. The Pac-12 right now is only 2 teams. That's not enough to get consideration by the CFP. So put that out of your head. That's not happening. They can get in, but they won't get in as a top 4. It can't happen. Just rest assured.
When you have to, when you are in the something can't happen mode, I enjoy watching you explain why something can't happen.
I love it when we
his hands start waving.
No, I just don't want Chris to waste any energy thinking that like Washington State could take Texas's slot in the top 4. That does not happen. Can't happen. They could take a 9 spot. They could take an 8, but they can't take a top 4. That will not happen.
And they can't take 12.
And
at the end of the year, they could be 12 if the other champion is higher than that.
Correct.
But they're not getting in as a conference champion.
Correct. Yeah, they will not be considered a conference champion in any way. That 12 seed is fluid. In years where there's a badass Cincinnati, well, Cincinnati's Big 12 now, but y'all know, Liberty. Let's say Liberty's good enough that the committee goes, you know what? They're like 6. Like, okay. So then the 4 conferences are in and they're in at 6, which will kick a team out ultimately, but then somebody will jump in at 12 as a Power 5. And that could be Washington State. That could be Oregon State.
Oh, again, I can't wait because there will be the way we will talk about the importance of every game. Trust me, when we get to November and 15 plays 19, do you not understand how big that game is?
Right. It's going to be huge.
And we normally have ignored those games. We've normally been like, who are 1, 2, and 3 playing?
Right.
And when we start talking about college game day moving forward, what's the biggest game? Is it necessarily 1, 2, 3, whoever they play? Or are we going to start looking at college football and this helps out everybody? What happens if TCU's 13 and Utah is 18? Sounds like maybe game day needs to go there because the winner of that game is in a position to be in, and you may be saying in mid-November that the loser of that game, they better win or else they've potentially played themselves too far back in the pack to climb over the other teams.
Catch, what it'll become is those late season NFL games that'll get flexed to Sunday. Sometimes we have a game where you go, well, why is that game on Sunday night? Well, it's because the winner is in the playoffs and the loser's out. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You're going to have that kind of discussion, that kind of vibe. And yeah, it's going to be tremendous looking around the country.
I'm telling you, you and I have had this conversation for a while. I just don't think that people have thought they'll have to live and experience it to truly get it and understand it. But you mentioned the NFL. there are times late in the season in the NFL, especially since they've expanded the playoffs, where every single game every week has playoff implications.
Yeah.
But sometimes some of the teams involved aren't, right? You'll have that in college football as well, but all of those games matter. All of them. We've been watching college football for so long. And what do we say? There's like 2 good games every week.
Yep.
Not now.
Yeah, it's because we've been running on all pageantry. We've been 100% pageantry fueled. That's the word everybody's been using for all these years. Chad, I just love the bands. I love the bands too, but let's put football in it. That's the problem. Now we're going to have pageantry and football at the same time. It's incredible. And Catch, you just mentioned those games. Think about it in the NFL. Late in a season, if Cleveland plays Pittsburgh and Cleveland's out of the playoff hunt, but Pittsburgh's not, what does Cleveland want to do? They want to end the dream for the Steelers. You don't think that translates to the college football landscape? South Carolina can keep Clemson from a playoff spot. The Aggies could keep the Longhorns from getting in. Arkansas could keep Texas from getting a bye. Arkansas could keep Texas from hosting a playoff game. The combinations are endless.
And then, Stanman, this could legitimately be true.
Yes. Catch, we've already seen it. I picked a great game in the series, a good close game. I went back to that 1990 game. The 1990 Texas A&M game would have been the Longhorns trying to get a bye and the Aggies trying to be in. I mean, I can't explain it any better than that. It's going to happen over and over and over with the biggest rivalry games. The ones you don't love now, you're going to love. There's about to be an Egg Bowl, Catch, where the state of Mississippi is going to, even more than it already does, lose every screw, bolt, and nut it's got, because Mississippi State, with a win in Starkville, can end the dream for Ole Miss. And it's going to be a scene. And I don't care if you play it at 2 a.m. on Thanksgiving. It's going to be awesome.
And we don't normally pay attention to that game.
No, a lot of people don't. And now you're going to be peeking in on games like that, or Missouri, Arkansas. Or
because if your team's 14, you're going to be rooting for Ole Miss to lose so that teams can move up.
Yeah. How about late in the year? Late in the year, right before the Iron Bowl, where Bama has to go to Norman. What are we all going to think of that game when we hit that Saturday? What's Oklahoma and what's Alabama in that game? And Texas fans, who the hell are you rooting for that day? We don't know. We have no idea, Catch.
Because it really becomes about self-interest. Where are you in the rankings? And you'll find out, You'll make some strange bedfellows when it's your self-interest gets involved in terms of, hey, we want to get in. And, I just can't wait. There have been a lot of people who are tradition and they think it's too many teams. I had somebody on Orange Bloods today say, it's too many. They'll go back to 8. And it was like,
probably not. I've been saying the whole time, all they needed was like 6. I'd have been happy with 6, but they're not going back up from 12.
I was like, do you think they're wiping out an entire weekend of television product? There's a better chance of the NCAA tournament going from 68 to 32 than there is from them going from 12 to 8, because the ratings are going to be off the grid good.
Yeah, I agree, because we're talking about a sport that's healthy in college football. College basketball is the one that's not, and we just pretend every year in March that it's actually great, and it's not. But this one, it's great, and it's about to get even better. It's going to be silly.